Welcome to the Been There, Sold That podcast, where you can take away sales and business tips to grow your business efficiently, effectively, and profitably. Take it away, Brianna Henley and Phil Whitebloom.
Hi, Brianna.
Hello, Phil. How are you today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic.
Did you happen to notice that there's somebody in the room with us?
Yes. It's our good friend, Beth V. Walker, who is the author of Buying College Better. Thank you, Beth, for joining us.
Oh, what a pleasure. What a great way to start the week.
Oh, I know. We're so happy. Bill and I, we looked at each other. We're trying to figure out what we're doing for the podcast. I'm like, oh, Beth's joining us. It's like, yay, great. So we're actually very, very, very excited.
Yeah.
So we're so happy to have you. So what's been going on in your world?
Busy. Just amazingly, at least in the state of Colorado, school is starting back already. Mid-August is when classes start. And there are people getting ready to drop their kiddos off to college for the first time. So parents are getting back into the swing of things, which is kind of amazing.
It is.
So, Beth, could you share with our listening audience and our viewing audience on who you are, what you do, why you do it, and all the good stuff?
You bet. Thanks, Phil. By day, I am a wealth advisor for Carson Wealth. And in that capacity, I've also worked over the last 20 plus years with a lot of families trying to figure out how to find the right schools for their kids and then how to pay for those right schools. So I also run a business called the Center for College Solutions. And the whole mission behind that, and the reason I wrote the book, Buying College Better, is I think parents are bringing a knife to a gunfight. They just find themselves overwhelmed with the complexity and the confusion and the costs associated with college. And so I'm on a mission to help families do that in a much, much better way. And amazingly, it can be done. We have to kind of abandon conventional wisdom, but it's amazing what can happen when you think about college as something you buy, not something your kids do, and you approach it with that consumer mindset. So that's what I do.
I had the pleasure of speaking with Beth because our oldest daughter, she finished up college, and Beth and I were having a conversation, and we had an independent college advisor help her out. And that was so helpful in the beginning parts of the process to really help our daughter figure out where she wanted to go, what she wanted to do, really what to focus on. And then when it came to the financial side, we were kind of on our own and we made some very big mistakes. And when we were talking to Beth, we were talking about those mistakes, and I swear she almost fell out of her chair. And she's like, oh my gosh, you could have done this. You could have done this. You could have done that. And I sat back and I thought, I'm like, wait a second. You mean to tell me that you would be with us throughout the entire process of our daughters and our kids going to college so that when we had a situation, we would actually have an advisor outside of our tax accountant, outside of anybody else to help us? And that was something that kind of smacked me in the face a little bit. And I'm like, that's awesome. I got to spread the word to everybody just how wonderful she is, because this process is so difficult. I mean, you don't think it is complicated. Most of us, I think all three of us went to college here and we figured it out. Probably didn't even have a lot of help from our parents, but applying and doing all those things, but things have changed so drastically. So we're so glad that you're here, Beth, to talk more about that.
My pleasure. I think about that conversation, and what occurs to me is the fact that my industry, financial advisors, I went back and looked at the certified financial planner curriculum. How are we taught? What do we learn? And one of the things that's astounding about it is we learn about the financial aid system. We learn about forecasting the cost of college with an inflationary rate. What we don't spend time on as an industry is understanding the intricacies of the cash flow and how the different pieces of the funding puzzle come together. And in so many instances, I'm also helping other financial advisors help their clients, because our industry's answer is, oh, okay, your kid is 5. That means in 13 years they're going to college. Let me plug that into my 529 calculator. Here's what it's going to cost. Here's what you need to save. And it's never that simple. It's a very student-centric process. One of the things you just said was, hey, we hired an independent educational consultant, which I am a huge believer in, because it's a student-centric process. We need to start with who's the kiddo, what are their strengths, what are they likely going to study in college. Once we understand what they're going to study from a major perspective, that should inform our college search process. But the other component that should inform our college search process is, what's the probable out-of-pocket cost? In other words, what is my spending ceiling for school? And that's what we just ignore. The most common comment I get from parents is, well, if they get into school XYZ, we'll figure out how to pay for it.
So you're on the Been There, Sold That podcast, right?
Yeah.
And so people think of all kinds of things. You know, you buy a washing machine, you buy cars, you buy homes, you buy coaches. You invest in coaches, right? We have coaches. We all have coaches, and we invest in the coaches, and we do all these other things, but we never talk about college as something we buy. It's like people go to college. We have to pay for college, but you never hear anybody say, I'm buying college. I'm selecting which college we want to purchase or which college we want to invest in. Why is that? And is this the right thing to be asking you? You know, this is why we think we're here in this Been There, Sold That podcast, right?
Well, it's a paradigm shift. And to drive that home, Phil, when I was doing research for the book, I did a Chat GPT search. I'm sure your audience knows it's an artificial intelligence generative AI program. And I basically said, okay, Chat GPT, tell me how you buy a car. And it goes out into the collective database of information that's readily available and says, here's the 10 steps. And among the first 3 are figure out what you can afford to pay for the car. I asked it, how do we buy a home? Another 7 to 10 steps, largely starting with get pre-qualified so that you're shopping in the right zip code. When I posed that question to ChatGPT, the answer was, as an AI program, I can't give you personal financial advice, because the collective wisdom that's out there does not recognize exactly what you said, Phil, that we're buying college. And yet it is like buying another house or a fleet of luxury vehicles. And so a small shift in our framework and how we approach this, if we got pre-qualified for the college purchase and we shopped in the right college zip codes for schools that were a good fit for our student, in 4 years, we'd change the entire landscape. We'd take back the power as consumers in this purchase. But right now, why would higher education ever want to change anything? I mean, there's taking money to the bank. Name another thing you buy where the price goes up every year for 4 years. And so you're right. Collectively, it is not the way we think about it, but it is the way we should think about it.
What could you tell us about the results when, from your clients, from people who have worked with you compared to those who haven't?
I would love to share one success story that just happened this last spring, so April of 2024. And I want to reiterate that this is a team sport. One of the things that I've learned over 20 plus years in this space is it takes a team of experts to create a terrific outcome. But if you use the magic method, which is what I write about in the book, M is for money, A is for academics, G is for gifts, I is for integration, C is for confidence. Here's an example of what we did. We helped a family figure out, A, which schools should the student be applying to where they're likely to get significant tuition discounts and merit-based aid so that they're not paying retail. And we did that by understanding the student's academic FICO score. What the heck is that? Well, that means you take things like their GPA, their test scores if they took them, the strength of their high school curriculum, their extracurricular activities, their essay, and you literally assign a score. And you go out to the universe of schools and you say, how would the school view this student? Because if the student bubbles up to the top 25% of kids typically admitted to that institution, they're going to roll out the red carpet. They're going to create discounts and incentives. They want that kiddo in their school. All right, so we've got to find the right schools for the right reasons. Then we calculated the spending ceiling for college based on that family's unique financials, just like going to a lender and getting pre-qualified to buy a home. Your criteria might be 4 bedrooms, 2.5 bathrooms, a 2-car garage. Okay, but you can get that list of benefits in a lot of different zip codes. Some could cost $1 million, some could cost $500,000. We've got to know what they could spend. We did that. And what we said to them was, you should only be applying to schools where you're likely to pay no more than $40,000 a year at the end of the day. So they were coachable and they said, okay, we're going to trust you on this. And they did that. Well, this kid ended up going to Baylor University, retail price $80,000 plus. And based on the discounts and the way we helped them negotiate, they're going to pay $39,000 a year. So what did we do? We saved them $160,000 over a 4-year education. That's huge. That's huge. And so that's the power of approaching this using a team of people who know what their job is in the process. And look, I understand it's not free. These people are experts. You got to pay them. But I mean, how much would you pay to save $160,000? $10,000, $15,000? I mean, that's a good return on investment. And that's just one student. So if you've got 2 or 3 kids, just think about that. And not every kid is going to go to a school that costs that much or is that selective, but it's all relative, right? You start with what you have to work with and you reverse engineer the solution. That is amazing.
That is amazing. And did you hear it?
And that's what puts a smile on my face.
I know. And that is so helpful for parents, especially since exactly what you said, it's such a daunting process. And for you to be able to break it down like that and help people understand exactly what they can do financially, as well as all the other things that can help through the process to get them to a place to where they feel comfortable and confident, and it becomes a really great experience for everybody and not so stressful.
So I have a little bit of an observation here. So in the conversation so far, the conversation has been around the finances, and well, it is buying college better, right? So, but it's almost like the student, his or herself, has been excluded and stuff. So could you explain how the prospective student is involved in this process, not just the parents?
I'd love to. I mean, when you think about it, college as a project plan is over 100-hour project plan. And when I say that, in fact, I had somebody who read the book and said, why did you say that? That's scary. That's daunting. But what parents have to understand is the vast majority of those hours are spent by the student. It is the student doing assessment work to really understand, how are they hardwired? How do they play to their strengths? Which career paths are they likely to thrive in? And then back in from those types of assessments to a probable major or majors. Because, you know, we can do all kinds of work and build self-awareness, but we are dealing with emerging humans here. And as they learn to become who they are and try to strive to become the best version of themselves, things are going to change. So you just have to plan for that. And wouldn't it be great if in this process they landed on a campus where if they changed majors, all the same coursework counts? You don't have to transfer and lose credit and pay more and go longer. So we can build things in for that. The kiddo has to earn the grades, has to take the tests. And I know that post-COVID, the big term was test optional, but it's interesting because most of the schools are gravitating back to finding a role for standardized tests. Why? Well, let's just take the 2023-24 academic year. Record 4.0s, record low ACT scores. What does that tell you? That's called grade inflation. And so the colleges are saying, I don't know if I can trust that 4.0. I need some standard by which I can measure whether the student is capable of college, whether they're going to thrive here, whether we're going to have to do some remedial work. So they're gravitating back to tools that have been working for decades, right or wrong. But the student has to do well on the tests. The student has to earn the GPA. The student has to approach their teachers about a letter of recommendation. The student has to do the research on the schools where they're going to attend. The student has to write the essay. The student has to compile everything that it takes for their online marketing profile, which is also called their application. So in this 100+ project plan, 90% of that is the work of the student, and they're doing what they should be doing. Now, do most of them benefit from a guide? Kind of like they're climbing Mount Everest, but they've hired a Sherpa? You bet. And do they benefit from an accountability partner that isn't mom and dad? Oh yeah, because this is so stressful. Brianna, you know this. I mean, when you're the parent of a teenager, the last thing they want to do is hear what mom and dad have to say. So if they have some people in their life that are all about them, somebody that is helping them, listening to them, guiding them, that can be a very powerful catalyst for a better outcome. And then the parents have to help when it comes to filing the financial aid forms. And I work with a lot of families that think, I'm not going to ever qualify for need-based financial aid. I'm just not going to do it. That is a tactical error, because in many instances, some of the lowest cost financing is available through the Department of Education. And at the end of the day, filling out the FAFSA or the CSS profile is nothing more than a loan application. So it's worthwhile. But the student does a lot.
They do. And the piece to what you were speaking about, Beth, of just that parent being that person to talk to, because typically, we try to guide our kids to go in the right direction. I am not a college expert. I have no idea. And my kid is way smarter than me. So I know she's going to be looking at things that are totally outside of my realm of knowledge. I mean, our second child wants to do music. I have no idea.
Right.
So being able to bring other people in that are really going to help them. I mean, we do that by the high schools that we choose and ensuring that they're, in the right GT programs and doing the advanced placement tests, and they're in the right classes that fit them. Why would you not do the same for college? And why would you not do that having people who actually know what they're talking about on the financial side as well as on the school side to get your kid where they need to go or where they want to go? Really, that's reasonable for you too. So you're not hurting your retirement. You're not hurting your savings. Because I feel like I'm sitting in the space of being in my 40s, and this is my second child, and we've got a third one on the way. So we are not out of the woods. We're smack dab right in the middle of it all.
That's right.
You mean a third one getting ready to go to college? There's not something you're not telling us.
Yeah.
Just thought I'd clear the vibe that for our listening audience.
I love it.
I'm 2 in high school right now.
That's right.
Yes. Two in high school, one that completed is officially out of college in the workforce. She completed everything in 3 years. And again, learning from experience, we didn't do everything the right way, though we had some great advisors. We didn't have the whole package. And that's what Beth brings, is she brings the whole rest of the circle. There was a piece of the circle that was missing.
And I think, you make a great point. We do spend a lot of time. In fact, one of the major ways in America we decide what house to buy is based on the school district. And many of us make the decision to invest in a private high school because we're putting a lot of confidence in and faith into that the high school, the guidance counselor, they're going to do all the things that are going to make this easier, better. Because maybe that's how it was approached when we went. One of the other astounding facts that I discovered in doing research for my first book, Never Pay Retail for College, and then reiterated with this one, there is no continuing education requirement for being a college counselor at a high school. So the rate of change in the admissions practice, the moving target, just look at the debacle we had with the FAFSA this year. There is no way that a school guidance counselor, whether they have 50 kids or 400 kids, is going to be able to keep up, not with the mental health issues they're dealing with, the scheduling things they're dealing with, their efforts to just get things uploaded into their system for getting the applications in on time with the letters of recommendation. They need help. Okay, so a lot of retired teachers and guidance counselors end up being independent educational consultants, and they're very focused on creating a great outcome for the student. But historically speaking, they don't want to talk about finances. And when you go to a college night at a high school, they don't want to talk about finances. It's like this thing we never talk about. And yet it's very real. So I just volunteer to be the bull in the china shop and say, I'm going to talk about it. Because I want you to be able to maintain your current lifestyle in your 40s and 50s, stay on track for retirement, and get 3 kids through school. That's not a small undertaking, but it can be done.
Beth, you brought up a really good point. When people feel as though, oh, this might not be something that I can afford, a lot of the parents out there are spending a lot of money on sports, travel sports specifically. We got a bill for my son and his travel sports. And there were a couple teams he was looking at. And one of the teams, it was something crazy, like $4,000 for fall baseball. $4,000 for fall baseball, where they might only play 3 tournaments and maybe a couple practices, and then it would lead into summer baseball, and summer baseball is going to be even more. So the amount of money that we're spending on our kids, because they want to go into professional sports, and we're hoping that might lead into a potential college scholarship. And I can keep going. It's like the amount of money that we've spent for our kids because they have an interest in a sport, whereas if they're in their 10th grade year or 9th grade year, they might not even want to play that sport.
They might get injured.
When they get
might not have the grades. They might not. Such a good point. And it does come down to values. How we choose to spend our money often reflects what we value. And in my experience with the families that have kids in the club sports, and I live in that household, I love it. I mean, I've got family members that have done it, right? I get it. But in the back of their mind, even subconsciously, they're translating that to a scholarship to play in school. Okay? And it may or may not happen from an odds perspective. What I do know, I mean, there are kids we've worked with where the answer is, based on what you're interested in, where you're likely to thrive, you should probably get an associate's degree at a community college, and it's going to set you up beautifully. Or a certificate program. Or I'll give you another classic example. in the state of Colorado, if you really want to pursue nursing, you don't go to a 4-year university out of the gate, because the state holds seats in the 4-year program for community college graduates. So if you get your associate's degree in nursing and then opt in to the more expensive 4-year school, you have a higher probability of being accepted, and you've lowered your cost by a third. I mean, okay, those are just the rules of engagement. And people just don't understand all the little nuances and complexities. And the other thing that cracks me up is parents don't understand the teenager tax. I talk about the teenager tax a lot because it's part of our funding strategy. And that's money that's already baked into your lifestyle. So let's go back, Brianna, to the two that, the one that's going to go off and study music, and then the younger one, right?
And just to clarify, you said teenager tax.
I did.
Right?
I did.
Okay, so teenager tax. I'm tracking.
So there's a real cost to having them under your roof. They like to eat. They like to drive your car. They wash their hair. Like, no parent wants to do the math on what does it really cost to have this kid in my household.
They have a phone.
They have a phone. You probably pay insurance for them driving, and that's not cheap, right? And so when we have this heart attack moment on the cost of college, we forget that there's an amount of room and board that's already baked into your lifestyle. We don't have to go find new dollars. We're just redirecting that money from being spent under your roof to on campus. And so a lot of the work that we do is figuring out, oh, okay, so I don't actually have to come up with all of this new money. I've saved some of it. Some of it's going to come out of current cash flow. There might be some that I have to figure out how we're going to pay, but it makes it a much more manageable number. And it's all predicated on what our spending ceiling is, because we need to pre-qualify you for that purchase. So it's all about finding the balance, and it's really about finding the right schools for the right price.
That's great. So Beth, as we're winding down to the end of our time, unfortunately, not everybody's going to have the ability to work with you directly. So tell us how, by reading the book, Buying College Better, tell us how the parents and the students will benefit from reading the book. And what should the expectation be?
I think the expectation in reading the book is for you to understand you need to surround yourself with a team of experts. We offer a lot of free resources. If you go to our website, Center for College Solutions /magic, there's a lot of free resources that you can take advantage of. I'm also, by the end of September, I'm going to offer a course just on the money part, super low cost, because I recognize not everybody has the time, has the money, can work with me personally, and I'm only one person. So I'm trying really hard to make it affordable to learn how to do the math on your own. And that'll be available at the end of September. But I would say this, if I said, hey, there's a couple of things you absolutely have to focus on. Get help in the career and majors area. Don't default to what's being offered as an assessment tool at the high school, because it's too broad and too generic. And we can point you in the right direction of very affordable resources there. Number 2, don't be casual about curating your college list. You need to find the schools where your student is likely to get discounted costs. Number 3, complete the FAFSA and the CSS profile. And for $149, I can point you in the direction of somebody who's an expert in that area. So think of it like TurboTax for FAFSA. Number 4, know that you can negotiate. Once you've received an award letter from the schools, that's their first offer. You don't have to just take what they give you right out of the gate. If you're lucky enough to have a couple of good offers and you share that information with the schools, they'll understand that they're in competition And I give that whole framework away for free in my first book, and I've got a PDF, and I'm happy to share how that conversation goes. So those would be the things that I think would be really meaningful for almost anybody that's listening in your podcast.
That's awesome. And for those of you who were not able to grab all of that, you don't want to go back and rewind, it's okay. When Beth mentioned September, it's September 2024, depending on when you're listening to this. And all of this information with the links and everything else will be in the synopsis for this podcast. So just look below the picture and all that information will be there. So just click on that. So Beth, one last time, could you just tell everybody, if they want to reach you, what's the best way to do that?
You can email me, Beth, at centerforcollegesolutionsPlural.com. You can go to the website, centerforcollegesolutions.com, and sign up for the email on our email list, and we'll find a way to connect with you. Very easy.
Oh, that's just great. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
You have been a wonderful guest. The information was unbelievable. It was, I wish I knew you when my kids were going to college, but you probably hear that a lot.
I get that a lot.
So, Brianna, any last words?
Yes, I'm very glad I know you, and I'm going to be doing something as the months go on, again, depending on when you hear this, to be able to promote not only this book, but also Beth's services, as I feel it is invaluable to families. So thank you so much for taking the time to come on. And I'm excited. I hope people really do take you up on what you're doing and reach out to you and figure out what makes most sense.
Yeah, and we would all like to hear from all of you on what you thought of our interview with Beth today, and any experiences you had, or you wish you had, or you want to have. So we'd love to hear from you. And Brianna, what's the best way for people to follow up with us?
Sure, they can go to the BeenThereSoldThat.com, and that is our podcast website page. Not only can you see our podcast, but you can also connect with Phil there, go to his website, as well as connect with me, go to my website. So it's your one-stop shop. And we also show a lot of things that we're doing there as far as our mastermind and other master classes through our master class series. And we look forward to hearing from you. So feel free to pop on over to the website.
Great. So thanks, everybody. It's been wonderful. And thanks to all of you for listening. So until next time, good selling.